Before we dive in, I've got a quick question for you. Where are you watching from right now, and what time is it? Drop it in the comments. I love seeing how far and wide our viewers are tuning in. Now, imagine this. Sung Jin-Woo, the Relentless, suddenly enters the Blue Exorcist universe. What happens next? Let's find out. The sky above True Cross Academy does not tear open with fire. It folds inward. No demonic circle, no chanting, no summoning ritual. Just a distortion, like reality itself hesitating for a second too long. Exorcists on patrol feel it before they see it. A pressure that does not burn like Gehenna. It suffocates. The air grows heavy, shadows stretching unnaturally across the academy courtyard, even though the sun is still high. Lower-tier demons hiding in nearby hosts begin to panic. Some abandon their vessels outright, fleeing without direction. That is the first sign that something is wrong. Demons do not fear easily. Students look up as the distortion sharpens into a vertical fracture in the sky. It does not glow red, it bleeds black. The crack widens silently, swallowing light around it. Then he steps through. Sung Jin-Woo lands without impact, boots touching stone as if gravity itself made space before him. Black coat resting against his frame, dark hair slightly shifting in the unnatural wind created by the closing gate. His eyes glow with that familiar abyssal blue, not emotional, not curious, simply assessing. The gate seals behind him instantly, leaving no residue of mana the exorcists can identify. No traceable signature, no known classification. A squad of trainee exorcists freezes. Their training tells them to react, to form formation, to chant, to prepare scripture rounds. Their instincts tell them to run. Jin-Woo lifts his gaze slowly. He does not speak. He does not need to. His presence expands outward like an invisible tide. The shadows beneath the academy trees thicken. Birds fall silent. Even the wind seems to retreat from him. This is not demonic energy. It is sovereign authority. Inside one of the academy buildings, Rin Okumura pauses mid-argument. He feels it instantly. Not Satan. Not a familiar infernal presence. This is colder, controlled, focused. It does not rage. It dominates. Back in the courtyard, one brave exorcist fires first. A consecrated bullet slices through the air, glowing faintly with scripture inscriptions. It reaches Jin-Woo's face and stops, suspended. Not blocked, not deflected, stopped by nothing visible. His eyes shift slightly toward the shooter. The bullet drops harmlessly to the ground. Then the pressure increases. It rolls outward in a silent wave that cracks the stone beneath his feet. Windows across the courtyard shatter simultaneously. The exorcists collapse to one knee, hands shaking, sacred charms igniting spontaneously as if trying to defend their bearers from something they cannot comprehend. Jin-Woo finally speaks, his voice calm, almost detached. This is not my world. There is no confusion in his tone. It is a calculation. A low growl echoes from the far end of the courtyard as a mid-tier demon, unable to endure the oppressive aura, materializes fully out of its human host in desperation. It lunges blindly toward him, claws ignited with corrupted flame. It never reaches him. The demon's body freezes mid-leap. Its shadow detaches first. And Jin-Woo smiles faintly as he begins to understand exactly what kind of world he has stepped into. The demon's body hangs in the air for half a heartbeat, muscles locked, claws inches from Jin-Woo's throat. Then the shadow beneath it peels away from the ground like liquid torn from a surface. The creature squeaks, not in pain, but in confusion. Demons in this world are used to contracts, to possession, to forceful exorcism. They are not used to being claimed. Jin-Woo raises his hand slightly. Arise. The word does not echo loudly. It does not need to. The command sinks into the detached shadow, reshaping it instantly. The demon's physical body collapses into ash before it even hits the courtyard tiles. But its shadow solidifies behind Jin-Woo, reforming into a darker, sharper silhouette of its former self. Its eyes glow with faint violet light, stripped of chaos, stripped of will. The exorcists stare in disbelief. That was not purification. That was recruitment. Inside the academy, alarms begin to ring. Sacred barriers activate around the perimeter, glowing lines of scripture forming a dome over sections of the campus. Senior exorcists rush toward the courtyard, weapons drawn, incantations already forming on their lips. Among them, Yukio Okumura's expression is not panic. It is analysis. His glasses catch the fractured light as he studies the figure standing at the epicenter of the pressure field. He watches the new shadow soldier kneel behind Jin-Woo like a loyal knight. This is not a demon king from Gehenna. This is something else entirely. Back in the courtyard, the oppressive aura intensifies. Lower-class demons hiding within nearby humans begin to force themselves out involuntarily, expelled by sheer dominance. One after another, they spill into the open, grotesque forms twitching in the daylight, unable to withstand the authority pressing down on them. Some attempt to flee. None make it far. Jin-Woo does not move much. He simply walks forward. Each step leaves a shallow fracture in the stone beneath him. The shadows around his boots ripple unnaturally, spreading outward like ink dropped in water. A fleeing demon is caught mid-sprint as its own shadow wraps around its legs, dragging it backward. Another tries to ascend into the air but finds the sky itself feeling heavier, like gravity has increased tenfold. Rin bursts through the academy doors, blue flames igniting instinctively along the blade of Kurikara. His demonic heritage responds violently to the foreign monarch class presence. His heart pounds, not from fear but from challenge. He sees Jin-Woo standing calmly in the center of the chaos, surrounded by kneeling shadows. For a split second, their eyes meet. Rin swings first. Blue flames roar outward in a crescent arc, slicing through the courtyard with explosive force. The attack is not hesitant. It is fueled by instinct and pride. The wave of demonic fire collides directly with Jin-Woo's position, consuming him in brilliant blue light that scorches stone and melts metal benches nearby. The students watching from shattered windows gasp. When the flames clear, Jin-Woo is still there. His coat is untouched. A thin veil of dark energy surrounds him, absorbing the remnants of Rin's strike like mist dispersing against a wall. The blue fire flickers uncertainly where it meets the shadow aura, as if unsure whether it is allowed to burn. Rin tightens his grip on his sword. Jin-Woo tilts his head slightly, examining the flames with visible interest now. Not threatened, not impressed, curious. The pressure shifts again, this time directed. Rin feels it hit him squarely in the chest. It is not hot, it is the weight. His knees almost buckle, but he forces himself upright, flames surging higher in defiance. Behind Jin-Woo, the newly risen shadow demon steps forward, awaiting a command. And for the first time since arriving in this unfamiliar universe, the Shadow Monarch decides to test its strongest defender properly. Jin-Woo does not rush him. He studies Rin the way a general studies a battlefield, eyes tracing the intensity of the blue flames, the instability beneath them, the raw potential barely restrained by human will. This one is different from the others. Not prey. Not yet. Rin charges again, flames exploding outward in a spiraling surge that carves a burning trench through the courtyard. The ground splits under the force of his acceleration, tiles erupting into the air as he closes the distance in a blink. His blade swings downward, wrapped in concentrated demonic fire, meant to cleave through anything in its path. This time Jin-Woo moves. Not backward, forward. His hand rises and catches the flaming blade mid-swing. The impact sends a shockwave through the academy grounds, cracking nearby walls and snapping trees in half. Blue fire climbs up Jin-Woo's arm, roaring violently as if trying to consume him. For a moment it seems to succeed, engulfing him completely in a pillar of azure flame. Then the fire dims. The shadows beneath his feet surge upward, swallowing the blue inferno like a tide extinguishing a spark. Steam hisses into the air as opposing energies grind against each other. Rin strains, pushing harder, muscles trembling as he pours more power into the strike. Jin-Woo's expression does not change. With a slight twist of his wrist, he forces the blade downward, driving Rin to one knee. The courtyard fractures further under the pressure of two sovereign forces colliding. Exorcists attempting to approach are thrown back by the violent cross-current of mana and demonic energy radiating outward. Yukio takes aim from a distance, firing consecrated rounds in rapid succession. The bullets streak toward Jin-Woo's blind spot, glowing brighter than before. They strike his shadow instead of his body. And stop. The ground itself seems to harden into darkness, swallowing the projectiles before they can reach him. Jin-Woo does not even look in Yukio's direction. The message is clear. Distance changes nothing. Rin roars and releases a burst of flames point blank, detonating between them. The explosion finally forces separation. Jin-Woo slides back several meters, boots carving lines through shattered stone, coat fluttering behind him. Smoke rises between them, heavy and distorted by the density of power saturating the area. For the first time, Jin-Woo's eyes sharpen with something closer to interest. He lifts his hand slightly. From every direction, the shadows lengthen. They stretch unnaturally from beneath trees, broken pillars, fallen debris. The shade cast by the academy buildings deepens into pitch-black voids. From those voids, figures begin to rise. Armored silhouettes step forward first, blades gleaming with cold light. Behind them, winged shapes unfurl jagged forms against the darkened sky. The newly claimed demon takes position among them, its earlier chaos replaced with disciplined stillness. Gasps echo across the courtyard as dozens of shadow soldiers assemble in seconds. Rin feels it immediately. The battlefield has shifted. This is no longer a duel. It is an army forming around a king. Jin-Woo takes a single step forward, and the shadows advance with him in perfect synchronization. The sacred barrier surrounding the academy flickers violently under the sudden increase in pressure. Scripture inscriptions spark and begin to crack as if the very concept of holy defense is being tested by something outside its rule set. Wipes blood from the corner of his mouth, blue flames flaring higher in defiance. He plants his feet, blade raised once more, refusing to yield ground even as the temperature drops sharply around him. Jin-Woo's voice cuts through the chaos, calm and absolute. Show me. The command is not for his army. It is for Rin. And the next clash detonates with enough force to send a visible shockwave rippling through the sky above True Cross Academy as the balance of this world begins to fracture under the weight of a monarch who was never meant to exist here. Rin answers the challenge without hesitation. The blue flames erupt outward from his body in a violent spiral, no longer restrained to the blade alone. They coil around him like a living storm, scorching the shattered courtyard and forcing nearby exorcists to retreat behind crumbling pillars. The air itself ignites, heat bending the light between him and the advancing shadows. He is not just swinging anymore. He is unleashing everything his demonic blood will allow. He launches forward, faster than before, cutting straight through the first wave of shadow soldiers. His blade tears through armored silhouettes, dispersing them into smoke that whips violently back toward Jin-Woo. Each strike is explosive, each movement reckless but powerful. Blue fire collides with black steel, and for a moment it seems like Rin is pushing the army back. Jin-Woo watches carefully. The dispersed shadows reform almost instantly behind Rin, rising again without hesitation. No pain, no fear, no fatigue. Rin spins, carving through another pair, but the realization hits him mid-motion. They are not dying. They are being reset. A shadow spear thrusts toward his blind side. Rin barely blocks it, the impact sending him skidding across fractured stone. Before he can regain full balance, 3 more figures descend from above, blades crashing down in perfect coordination. The synchronization is inhuman. It is tactical. Yukio shouts something from a distance, firing continuously to create openings, but the bullets vanish into the expanding darkness that now blankets half the courtyard. The sacred barrier overhead flickers again, lines of scripture burning brighter in resistance before cracking like strained glass. Jin-Woo finally steps into the fray. He moves through the chaos without being touched, shadows parting for him instinctively. Rin sees him coming and roars, flames surging to their peak. He channels everything into a single forward strike, blue fire compressing along the blade until it hums with destructive force. They collide at the center of the ruined courtyard. Flame meets shadow in a violent eruption that splits the ground open completely. A crater forms beneath their feet, stone disintegrating into molten fragments. The shockwave tears through nearby buildings, shattering windows across the academy and knocking exorcists flat against the ground. Rin pushes with everything he has, teeth clenched, eyes blazing with defiance. The fire intensifies, fueled by emotion, by pride, by the need to prove he is not inferior in his own world. Jin-Woo's expression remains steady. The shadows around his arm thicken, coiling like serpents before compressing into a concentrated mass of monarch-class authority. The temperature drops sharply despite the raging inferno. Frost creeps across the edges of the crater as darkness devours heat itself. Then Jin-Woo presses forward. The blue flames fracture, not extinguished, overpowered. Rin is driven backward, boots carving trenches as he fights to remain standing. His flames flicker violently under the suffocating pressure. For the first time, uncertainty flashes across his face. Jin-Woo stops just short of delivering a decisive blow. His gaze shifts past Rin toward the academy buildings, toward the countless presences watching from behind cracked walls and trembling barriers. He senses the hierarchy, the structure, the system of this universe. Demons bound by contracts, exorcists bound by doctrine, a balance maintained through constant opposition. His shadows continue to spread outward, seeping into every crack in the courtyard. The fallen stone casts deeper darkness than it should. The air feels heavier with each passing second. This world operates on fear of Gehenna. But Gehenna has never faced a monarch. Jin-Woo releases Rin and steps back, not out of mercy, but calculation. The message has been delivered. The strongest defender has been tested and measured. Above them, the sky darkens unnaturally despite the time of day, not from storm clouds, from shadow density. Demons hiding across the city feel it. The shift in hierarchy, the arrival of something that does not belong to Satan's chain of command, something that does not seek chaos but dominion. Rin steadies himself, breathing heavily, flames still burning but no longer surging wildly. He understands now that brute force alone will not overwhelm this opponent. Jin-Woo turns slightly, scanning the horizon beyond the academy walls. His army stands ready behind him, silent and disciplined, awaiting a single thought of command. This universe is unstable, and instability can be ruled. The ground beneath True Cross Academy remains split open, the sacred barrier overhead spiderwebbed with cracks that refuse to repair. Shadows linger where light should exist, clinging to surfaces as if they have claimed territory. Segment 1 does not end with victory. It ends with a rival, and the undeniable truth settled over Assiah like a second nightfall. A monarch has entered the Blue Exorcist universe, and he is not here to visit. The shockwaves from the courtyard have not even finished echoing through the academy when the higher ranks take control. Orders travel faster than panic. Sacred wards reactivate in overlapping layers, scripture burning brighter as reinforcements flood the perimeter. What just occurred is no longer a student-level incident. It is a breach beyond classification. Yukio lowers his smoking pistol slightly, eyes locked on Sung Jin-Woo with sharpened calculation. He has already discarded the demon hypothesis. Demons do not command other demons with that level of absolute obedience. They bargain, they manipulate, they dominate through hierarchy. This is different. This is structural control. He adjusts his glasses and speaks into his communicator with steady urgency, authorizing escalation protocols that have not been used in years. His voice never trembles, but his mind is moving rapidly. Unknown entity, untraceable mana signature, ability to override demonic existence itself. That alone redefines the battlefield. Across the courtyard, Jin-Woo stands amidst fractured stone and kneeling shadows as if he owns the space. His coat settles naturally against the fading wind. He is not attacking now. He is observing the response, measuring reaction speed, assessing power tiers. The ground trembles again, but not from him. A new presence enters the academy grounds, cutting through the suffocating pressure with disciplined force. The exorcists straighten instinctively as a figure steps forward from the reinforced barrier line. Authority radiates differently here, not oppressive, controlled, refined through years of combat. The Paladin has arrived. Arthur A. Angel does not rush into reckless assault. His long coat sways lightly as he surveys the destruction with sharp, experienced eyes. He sees the cracked barrier overhead. He sees the reformed shadows waiting behind Jin-Woo. He sees Rin standing wounded yet defiant. And he understands instantly that this is not a rogue demon event. This is an invasion. Jin-Woo's gaze shifts toward him with mild interest. Stronger, composed. This one does not fear the pressure. His stance is grounded, sword resting calmly at his side, holy energy faint but concentrated around the blade like restrained lightning. Arthur steps forward without hesitation, boots crunching over broken stone. The sacred inscriptions along his weapon glow faintly, as if reacting defensively to the monarch-class aura saturating the air. "You stand on consecrated ground," he says evenly, voice carrying across the ruined courtyard. "Identify yourself." Jin-Woo does not answer immediately. Instead, the shadows at his feet ripple in quiet anticipation. He studies the Paladin the way he studied Rin, but this time there is no curiosity about raw power. There is an assessment of discipline. The exorcists around Arthur reposition carefully, forming layered formations designed for high-tier demonic suppression. Barriers overlap. Chant sequences begin under hushed breath. No one makes the first reckless move. Arthur senses it clearly now. This entity is not here to destroy randomly. He is calculating. That makes him more dangerous. Yukio steps beside the Paladin briefly, offering a concise breakdown of what they have witnessed. Demon extraction, shadow conversion, regeneration of fallen units, immunity to consecrated ammunition. The list grows more concerning with every word. Arthur nods once. Then he draws his blade fully. Holy energy ignites along its edge, bright enough to cut through the unnatural dimness creeping over the academy grounds. The contrast between sacred light and monarch shadow becomes immediate and volatile. Jin-Woo finally speaks, voice calm but edged with quiet authority. "You are stronger than the others." It is not praise, it is confirmation. Arthur responds by moving first. His speed is not reckless like Rin's. It is precise, calculated. He closes the distance in a flash of motion, blade cutting in a horizontal arc infused with concentrated holy force meant to sever spiritual anchors. The strike does not aim for flesh. It aims for the shadows. The blade slices through the air with a resonance that feels different from Rin's flames. It carries doctrine within it, centuries of refinement against demonic corruption. When it connects with the outer edge of Jin-Woo's shadow field, the courtyard flashes white. For the first time since arriving, Jin-Woo's aura reacts defensively instead of passively absorbing. The holy strike carves a visible line through the darkness, splitting several shadow soldiers in half before they can reform. Their silhouettes flicker violently, struggling to reassemble under the disruptive force embedded in Arthur's weapon. Arthur pivots smoothly, following with a second strike aimed lower, targeting the ground beneath Jin-Woo's feet. The holy energy erupts outward on impact, creating a circular shockwave that momentarily disperses the creeping shadows that had claimed the fractured stone. Exorcists watching from the perimeter feel a surge of hope. It worked. Not completely, but enough to prove something vital. This entity is not invincible. Jin-Woo glances down at the fading tear in his shadow field. Interesting. He steps back once, creating space rather than contesting the momentum directly. His soldiers pull inward, tightening formation instead of swarming recklessly. Adaptation happens instantly. Arthur notices that adjustment. His expression sharpens. He presses forward again, blade flashing in disciplined sequences designed not to overpower, but to dismantle structure. Each swing releases controlled bursts of sanctified energy that cut through multiple shadow soldiers at once, disrupting their cohesion faster than they can fully regenerate. Igris steps forward to intercept. The armored Shadow Knight meets Arthur's blade head-on. Steel collides with consecrated light in a shower of sparks that crackle with opposing authority. Arthur's stance holds firm. Igris is driven back half a step, boots grinding into broken stone. The courtyard becomes a battlefield of layered forces. Yukio coordinates from behind reinforced cover, directing exorcists to focus fire on areas where Arthur's blade creates openings. Sacred bullets and binding talismans strike the destabilized shadows, slowing their reformation cycles. Chanting intensifies as barrier specialists attempt to isolate the epicenter of Jin-Woo's influence. For the first time, the shadow expansion across the academy grounds halts. Not reversed. Contained. Jin-Woo watches the coordination unfold with quiet approval. They are not chaotic. They are structured, hierarchical, efficient. He raises one hand slightly. The temperature drops again. From the far edges of the courtyard where the light had begun to reclaim ground, darkness thickens unnaturally. The shadows are no longer relying solely on fallen debris or natural shade. They begin forming independently, as if drawn from the air itself. Arthur feels the shift instantly. His next strike lands harder, holy energy flaring brighter in response. He drives Igris back and attempts to push through toward Jin-Woo directly, understanding that eliminating the commander is the only viable path to ending this. Jin-Woo moves at last. He vanishes from his position, reappearing within Arthur's striking range in a blur of compressed shadow. Their blades do not clash, because Jin-Woo is not holding one. He catches Arthur's wrist mid-swing. The holy energy surges violently against his grip, burning through the outer layer of shadow like acid through cloth. The impact creates a localized explosion of light that forces nearby exorcists to shield their eyes. Arthur strains, muscles tightening as he channels more power into the blade. The sacred inscriptions along its length blaze intensely, attempting to sever the connection between Jin-Woo and the surrounding darkness. For a brief second, the monarch's shadow aura flickers. Arthur sees it, and he commits fully, pouring everything into a single forward drive meant to break the entity's hold over this battlefield once and for all. Arthur forces his weight forward, boots digging into shattered stone as holy energy detonates outward from his blade in a blinding surge. The courtyard floods with white light, scripture symbols flaring across the cracked barrier overhead, as if resonating with his strike. For a split second, the shadows recoil violently, their forms destabilizing under the concentrated sanctification. Jin-Woo does not release his grip. Instead, the darkness around his hand compresses, condensing into something denser, heavier, more absolute. The holy energy burns through layers of shadow, but it does not reach flesh. It grinds against an invisible threshold, meeting resistance that is not demonic corruption, but sovereign authority. Arthur's eyes narrow. This is not a creature resisting purification. This is a ruler rejecting it. With a sharp twist, Jin-Woo shifts his stance and redirects the force of Arthur's drive sideways. The paladin is thrown across the courtyard, skidding through debris before regaining his footing in one fluid recovery. He does not fall. He does not falter. But the distance between them widens. The exorcist sees the opening. Binding talismans ignite mid-air, forming luminous chains that snap toward Jin-Woo from multiple angles. Sacred incantations echo in layered harmony, attempting to pin his shadow field in place long enough for containment rituals to activate. The chains connect. For an instant. Then the ground beneath Jin-Woo liquefies into pure darkness. The chains sink into it and vanish as if swallowed by a bottomless well. The courtyard's remaining light dims another degree, and a low vibration hums through the fractured earth. Arthur rises fully now, blade raised again, breathing controlled but heavier than before. He understands something crucial. The longer this continues, the more this battlefield transforms into territory favorable to the invader. Yukio's voice cuts through the chaos, issuing rapid tactical adjustments. Focus pressure on the epicenter. Disrupt environmental conversion. Prevent expansion beyond Academy perimeter. His shots become more deliberate, targeting areas where shadow density spikes unnaturally. Several shadow soldiers collapse under combined fire, but they rise again seconds later, reforming from pools of darkness that no longer correspond to natural light sources. The rules here are changing. Arthur charges once more, this time altering strategy. Instead of aiming directly for Jin-Woo, he strikes the ground in front of him, driving his blade downward with enough force to split the stone. Holy energy erupts in a radial burst, carving a wide circle of consecrated ground that momentarily purifies everything within it. The effect is immediate. The shadows inside the circle dissipate completely. Jin-Woo stands just beyond its edge. Their eyes lock again. Arthur steps into the cleared space, claiming it as a foothold of resistance. His presence stabilizes the air within the circle, scripture lines reinforcing under his authority. For the first time since the monarch arrived, there is a defined boundary that the shadows do not immediately cross. Jin-Woo observes the technique with visible calculation. Territory denial. Smart. He lifts his hand slowly. Behind Arthur, beyond the consecrated ring, the darkness thickens vertically. It rises not outward, but upward, forming towering silhouettes that eclipse parts of the Academy skyline. Winged shadows unfurl against the dimming sky. Larger forms begin to manifest, heavier and more intricate than the earlier soldiers. Arthur senses the escalation and tightens his grip. This is no longer a test of individual strength. It is a contest of domains. The sacred circle at his feet begins to flicker as the surrounding shadow pressure intensifies. Hairline fractures appear in the glowing inscriptions etched into the stone. The air grows colder, breath visible even amid residual heat from Rin's earlier flames. Jin-Woo finally steps forward again. He does not enter the consecrated ring. Instead, he expands the darkness around it, compressing it inward like a tightening vice. The circle of holy ground remains intact, but the space beyond becomes suffocatingly dense. Arthur realizes the implication. He is being contained, not attacked. Contained. Jin-Woo's voice carries across the battlefield, calm and unwavering. You defend your territory well. It is not admiration. It is recognition of capability. Arthur answers by raising his blade once more, holy light surging brighter in defiance. Then the sky above True Cross Academy splits with a distant rumble, as if something far deeper within Gehenna has noticed the shift in power and begun to stir in response to the monarch's growing influence. The rumble does not come from collapsing buildings or failing barriers. It comes from above, from a layer of reality that has just been disturbed. Clouds twist unnaturally over the Academy, spiraling toward a dark focal point that did not exist minutes ago. Demons scattered across the city freeze mid-movement, instinct overriding instinct. Something higher in the chain of command has felt the disruption. Arthur feels it too. His jaw tightens as the sacred circle beneath his feet pulses harder, reacting to a pressure that is no longer localized to the courtyard. This is expanding beyond Exorcist jurisdiction. Jin-Woo lifts his gaze briefly toward the shifting sky, eyes narrowing just slightly. There it is. The true hierarchy of this world is beginning to respond. The towering shadows behind him solidify further, armor detailing sharpening, wings stretching wider. These are not mere foot soldiers now. They are higher-tier constructs shaped by accumulated authority. The air vibrates with contained violence. Arthur makes a decision. He lunges forward out of the consecrated circle, abandoning the defensive perimeter he created. Holy light explodes around him in a focused column as he drives straight toward Jin-Woo with everything he has left. If this escalates further, containment becomes impossible. The source must be destabilized now. The moment he crosses the edge of purified ground, the shadows surge. Not chaotically, strategically. Two massive shadow forms intersect from either side, blades crashing against Arthur's in synchronized strikes that force him to adjust mid-charge. He pivots, cleaving through one, dispersing it in a burst of sanctified light. But the second catches his flank and drives him sideways into fractured stone. He recovers instantly, rolling to one knee, blade raised defensively as Jin-Woo closes the remaining distance at a measured pace. There is no anger in the monarch's expression, only evaluation. Arthur rises again, breathing heavier now, holy aura flickering at its edges. He has pushed back the tide repeatedly, but the tide is not receding. It is learning. Yukio fires again from the perimeter, coordinating a final synchronized assault. Binding arrays activate beneath Jin-Woo's feet, glowing with layered scripture meant to anchor spiritual entities in place. Multiple exorcists chant in perfect cadence, amplifying the seal. For a fraction of a second, the ground beneath Jin-Woo hardens into luminous geometry. The shadows stop moving. Arthur sees the opening and commits completely, launching forward in a final decisive strike aimed not at the aura, not at the army, but at Jin-Woo's core. Their powers collide at point-blank range. Holy light and monarch shadow erupt upward in a vertical explosion that tears a temporary rift through the spiraling clouds above. The shockwave shatters what remains of the academy courtyard, flattening structures already weakened by earlier clashes. Exorcists are thrown back, barriers cracking audibly under the strain. When the light fades, Arthur stands, frozen, mid-strike. His blade has connected, but not deeply enough. Jin-Woo's hand grips the flat of the weapon, shadow energy wrapped tightly around it, halting the advance inches from his chest. The holy inscriptions along the blade flicker violently, struggling to maintain coherence against the overwhelming density pressing against them. Arthur pushes harder, teeth clenched, muscles trembling. Jin-Woo leans slightly closer, voice low but perfectly steady. You fight for balance. His grip tightens. I rule over imbalance. The shadow energy surges. Arthur is forced backward once more, sliding across debris until he slams into the base of a shattered pillar. The sacred circle he created earlier fully extinguishes, its inscriptions fading into cracked stone. Silence spreads across the battlefield. The towering shadow forms remain poised. The exorcists struggle to rise. Yukio lowers his weapon slowly, calculating new variables that are becoming increasingly unfavorable. Above them, the spiraling clouds stabilize into a dark vortex that does not dissipate. Jin-Woo turns his gaze upward again, sensing something immense pressing from the other side of this world's boundary. Not fear, not concerned. Opportunity. Segment 2 does not end with a paladin defeated. It ends with a message sent beyond Assiah. The monarch has engaged the guardians of this realm, and something in Gehenna has started paying attention. The vortex above True Cross Academy does not fade with the silence below. It deepens. What began as a reaction becomes intention. The air pressure shifts across the entire district, subtle at first, then undeniable. Animals scatter, electronic signals distort. Every demon bound by contract feels a summons ripple through their core, not from an exorcist, not from ritual, but from Gehenna itself. Rin senses it immediately. The blue flames around his blade flicker erratically, responding to something far more familiar than the monarch standing in front of him. This presence burns differently. It is ancient, vast, watching. Jin-Woo remains still amid the devastation, coat settling against the dying wind. His shadow army stands at disciplined attention behind him, but his focus is no longer on the exorcists. His perception stretches upward, beyond the vortex, beyond the thin membrane separating Assiah from the infernal plane. He feels the structure of this universe pressing back. In Gehenna, the disturbance is not subtle. The hierarchy trembles. Lesser nobles sense territory distortion. Mid-tier demon lords halt their internal conflicts. The current of authority that has flowed unchallenged through Satan's dominion stutters for the first time in centuries. Something has inserted itself into the equation without invitation, and it does not kneel. Back in Assiah, the vortex contracts inward sharply, then expands in a violent pulse that cracks the remaining sacred barrier above the academy. Light fractures across the sky like broken glass. From the center of the distortion, heat pours downward, not wild and chaotic, but concentrated and deliberate. Arthur forces himself back to his feet despite the strain etched across his expression. Yukio steadies his aim but does not fire. Instinct tells him this escalation is beyond tactical suppression. This is geopolitical at a cosmic level. Jin-Woo's eyes narrow slightly as a shape begins to form within the vortex. Not fully manifested. Not yet. A silhouette of regal proportions, framed in searing infernal light. Horned, towering, composed of flame so dense it appears almost solid. Demons across the city fall prostrate without understanding why. The voice that follows does not echo through air. It resonates directly within consciousness. An intruder. The word carries weight that bends reality. Rin staggers half a step as the presence intensifies, blue flames surging in involuntary response. He knows that voice, not personally, but instinctively. It is the origin of his power magnified beyond comprehension. Jin-Woo does not bow. He does not shield his eyes. He studies the manifestation like a rival monarch assessing another throne. The infernal silhouette sharpens further, heat scorching the fractured courtyard below. Stone begins to liquefy under the descending pressure. Several shadow soldiers closest to the epicenter destabilize under the overwhelming demonic authority pouring through the rift. For the first time since entering this world, Jin-Woo's shadows are not the dominant force in the sky. The vortex widens, and Gehenna answers the monarch's arrival directly. The silhouette solidifies further, revealing features that defy simple comprehension. Its form is humanoid, yet impossibly large, wings stretching wider than the courtyard itself. Horns curve backward like jagged crescents. Glowing with unholy heat, the flames around it shift from chaotic inferno to controlled, flowing energy, as if the being has mastered both destruction and structure. Every demon present, no matter how lowly, feels compelled to bow instinctively. The chain of command, long unbroken under Satan, begins to shiver. The hierarchy is being rewritten by presence alone. Jin-Woo tilts his head slightly, observing the incoming force. There is no panic, no flinch, only calculation. His coat flutters lightly against the rising wind of raw demonic energy. His shadow army stiffens, as if sensing the magnitude of what is manifesting above. They have never been tested against anything of this scale. He knows it, and that excites him. The infernal figure's attention focuses downward, directly onto the shattered academy grounds. Pulse of authority radiates outward in waves that disrupt even the carefully structured exorcist formations. Consecrated bullets fizzle mid-air. Binding talismans ignite spontaneously and then crumble under pressure. Sacred barriers flare and crack in unison, struggling against the overwhelming influx of demonic energy. Rin steps forward instinctively, Kurikara drawn and flames spiraling violently along its blade. His confidence wavers only slightly. Even with his full demon potential activated, he senses that this presence dwarfs anything he has faced. Every instinct screams both danger and opportunity. Blue flames surge higher, responding to the energy above with a resonance that almost feels like communication. Jin-Woo does not move from his position in the center of the courtyard. Instead, he spreads his hands slightly, causing shadows to ripple outward as though bracing for a test. The new demonic presence descends partially through the vortex, its form massive but not fully manifest, an ethereal monarch surveying its domain. Jin-Woo's shadows respond immediately, forming jagged defensive shapes that coil and shift with unnatural precision. Arthur and Yukio exchange a tense glance. The combined experience of the Vatican's most elite exorcists and the Academy's defenders is being dwarfed not just by raw power, but by the scale of authority they face. Every protective measure, every strategic formation, every sacred spell is strained to the absolute limit. Nothing has prepared them for a direct incursion from Gehenna itself, triggered by the arrival of an unknown monarch. From the vortex, a ripple of psychic energy spreads, making even the seasoned exorcists stagger. The words are not spoken aloud but resonate inside consciousness. Jin-Woo senses it too, a challenge, an acknowledgement of arrival. The monarchs of Gehenna are aware of this intruder, and they are intrigued enough to act. Without further warning, a massive winged demon descends from the swirling rift. It is not wild or reckless like lesser demons. It moves with deliberate authority. Its presence alone crushes the mid-tier demons attempting to resist its gravity. It lands before Jin-Woo with the force of a collapsing tower, shaking the ground in concentric rings. The shadows immediately coil around him, ready to defend, but Jin-Woo remains calm. The winged noble's eyes lock onto Jin-Woo. Their gaze pierces reality, searching for the nature of this foreign monarch. There is no malice yet. There is evaluation. A test is being administered. One movement, one reaction will determine the initial hierarchy in this unexpected intersection of worlds. Rin's blue flames flare uncontrollably in response to the descending noble. Heat waves clash against cold authority, creating a tangible distortion in the air. Yukio steadies himself, firing a volley of consecrated rounds that vanish before contact. Arthur presses forward, determined to intercept, but every step feels like walking against a tide of monarch-level will. Jin-Woo tilts his head again, studying the winged noble with measured interest. His voice carries softly but firmly across the courtyard. "So you are the one answering." The noble spreads its wings fully, and the resulting shockwave knocks several exorcists off their feet. The first direct confrontation between a Gehenna aristocrat and the invading monarch begins not with fire, not with violence, but with absolute recognition. Power and authority collide before any physical strike is made. The shadows beneath Jin-Woo ripple outward in response, extending to every corner of the courtyard, adapting instantaneously to the enormous demonic authority above. The battlefield transforms into a layered contest of dominion. The exorcists realize instinctively that they are now observers in a struggle far beyond their scale, their attacks inconsequential except to the degree they might influence the monarch's focus. The noble speaks, but not aloud. The words resonate through Jin-Woo's awareness directly, a subtle probing, assessing the boundaries of his capability. The monarch of shadows meets the gaze without fear or hesitation, standing firm in the ruins of True Cross Academy. Every shadow soldier, every fragment of darkness he commands responds instantly, forming an impenetrable lattice of authority around him. The courtyard is no longer just a battlefield, it is a proving ground. The winged noble steps forward, descending fully into Assiah, and the ground itself reacts violently. Stone shatters, air pressures spike, and the sky above bends in unnatural distortion. The first tangible contact between Gehenna and the intruding monarch has begun. The message is clear. Gehenna responds not with chaos, but with deliberate sovereign authority. Jin-Woo is no longer merely an invader. He is a contender in a war whose rules he has only begun to understand. Rin and the exorcists brace themselves, watching the unfolding spectacle, aware that everything they have known about demons, hierarchy, and power is about to be rewritten. Jin-Woo stands unshaken, shadows flaring outward, acknowledging the challenge. A war between monarchs has begun. The vortex pulses again, brighter and wider this time, signaling that more forces from Gehenna are stirring. Jin-Woo senses it. This is only the beginning. The evaluation from the other side of the dimensional divide has started. Every move now matters. Every action will be measured by beings far beyond the scale of Assiah. And in that tense silence, the realization strikes everyone watching. The balance of this universe has been broken, and a new order is attempting to assert itself from both sides of the rift. This confrontation is not casual, it is structural, it is strategic, and it will escalate further. The winged noble lands fully in the courtyard, each step sending fissures through the fractured stone beneath it. The heat radiating off its form is intense but controlled, not wild like lesser demons. This is authority embodied, deliberate, and measured. Its wings spread wide, casting immense shadows that merge and collide with the darkness Jin-Woo commands. The two presences do not move immediately. They assess. They measure. The battlefield becomes a silent proving ground. Every fragment of debris, every displaced shadow, every exorcist crouched behind a cracked wall caught in the tense equilibrium. Jin-Woo shifts slightly, causing his shadows to ripple like liquid obsidian. The soldiers he raised from converted demons tighten their formation, blades and limbs aligning into perfect synchronization. Each movement is preemptive, defensive, and assertive all at once. They are not reacting, they are anticipating. The winged noble tilts its head, the horns glinting faintly in the distorted light of the fractured sky. This is the first acknowledgement from Gehenna. The foreign monarch is competent. He is sovereign. He is not to be dismissed. Arthur moves cautiously to the edge of the courtyard, sword ready, recognizing instinctively that any engagement at this moment must be coordinated with the larger forces at play. Even Yukio restrains his firing, understanding that reckless attacks will only provoke escalation from being orders of magnitude above standard combatants. Rin steps forward as well, blue flames licking the edges of his sword, his chest heaving with exertion. He knows his flames alone cannot tip this balance, yet instinct compels him to remain engaged. Jin-Woo finally speaks, voice calm, resonating through the field of tension. You are strong, not hostile. Assessment only. The winged noble responds in thought, not sound, a probing message that sinks into the mind rather than the ears. The interaction is instantaneous, subtle, and intense. Authority meets authority. Sovereignty clashes in silence. The exorcists cannot perceive the depth of this mental exchange, only the consequences that ripple outward. A gust of heat, a tremor of stone, a flicker in the shadow soldier's stance. Then the noble takes a single, deliberate step toward Jin-Woo. The shadows tighten reflexively around their monarch, forming spikes and coils that surge upward like living steel. The impact of the noble's presence is immediate. Lower-tiered demons present in the courtyard begin to convulse and collapse, unable to withstand the concentrated authority compressing reality around them. This is not destruction in the ordinary sense. It is control. Absolute, structural, uncompromising. Jin-Woo does not flinch. Instead, he steps slightly forward as well. His shadows respond instantly, wrapping around the collapsing demons and drawing them into his control before they can disperse. The battlefield responds to him as a single entity, fluid and adaptive. This is the first tangible demonstration that he is not merely surviving Gehenna's presence, he is contesting it. The winged noble spreads its wings fully, generating a vacuum of raw demonic energy that lifts dust, rubble, and even some of the Academy's fractured structures into the air. It is a demonstration of power meant to intimidate, to assert dominance. Yet Jin-Woo does not retreat. He lowers his arms subtly, shadows rising like a tide in response, forming jagged defensive spires that intercept the incoming energy. Contact is made, and for a brief moment, the courtyard seems to exist between two opposing realities, one governed by holy light and exorcist authority, the other by monarch-level shadow domination and Gehenna's structural will. Rin struggles to maintain the form of his blue flames, the intensity wavering as the concentrated energies distort gravity, air pressure, and temperature simultaneously. Yukio fires again, attempting to support Arthur, but his shots vanish into the thickening void between the monarchs. Every traditional method of attack is neutralized, redirected, or rendered ineffective. Jin-Woo tilts his head slightly as if acknowledging the noble's presence fully for the first time. This is a worthy opponent, not hostile yet, but a test. The shadows around him pulse in anticipation, not aggression. They are preparing for the inevitable escalation. The winged noble steps closer, and the ground trembles with authority. Stone fractures further. Dust clouds rise, carrying ash and displaced energy. Even the air seems heavier, compressed by the collision of two monarch-class presences. The exorcists brace themselves, understanding that every move they make now is incidental in a struggle whose stakes transcend Assiah entirely. Then, without warning, the noble's wings beat downward in a controlled motion, generating a pressure wave aimed not to kill, but to assert dominance. The shockwave pushes Jin-Woo slightly back, testing the integrity of his shadow army and forcing subtle adjustments. His soldiers coil and reform instantly, absorbing the strike into the lattice of authority. Arthur recognizes the magnitude of what he is witnessing. Even his sacred blades and reinforced barriers are insignificant compared to the monarch-level energies clashing in his courtyard. Yukio's tactical mind races, calculating variables too numerous to count. Yet all options point to one truth. Sung Jin-Woo is not alone, and he is being measured by forces that even Satan's presence would acknowledge. Jin-Woo releases a low, controlled breath and lifts his hand. Shadows ripple outward in waves of imperceptible but overwhelming authority, pushing back against the noble's pressure, reasserting dominance in localized areas. The ground quakes, the exorcists stagger, lower-tier demons shiver and collapse where the influence is too great. The noble pauses, sensing the pushback, and tilts its head slightly. It is not a surprise. It is a calculation, acknowledgement, interest. A silent mental decree passes between the two monarchs. This is a contest of strategy, precision, and absolute authority, and the balance of power is being negotiated in real time. Steadies himself, gripping Kurikara tightly. He realizes that this is no longer his fight alone. The conflict has shifted beyond exorcist versus demon. It is monarch versus monarch. The world itself is the battlefield. The Academy is a chessboard, and every step taken will ripple through both Assiah and Gehenna. From the sky, the vortex continues to swirl, feeding energy downward in unpredictable pulses. Jin-Woo's shadows rise in response, creating a fluid battlefield that adapts instantly. The tension thickens until it becomes almost palpable. Every observer feels it, even from a distance. Gehenna is responding. The hierarchy is stirring. And Sung Jin-Woo stands at the center, unyielding, shadows coiling, aware that this engagement will redefine not just this universe, but the rules of power across all realms. The first tangible phase of Gehenna's response has begun, and this is only the opening move. The courtyard trembles under the sheer presence of the two monarchs, the air thick with a weight that presses on everyone's chest. Rin Okumura's flames, which had flared uncontrollably at the arrival of Gehenna's emissary, now swirl around him in chaotic loops, reacting to the pulse of Sung Jin-Woo's shadows as if the two forces are having a silent conversation. He kneels briefly, gripping Kurikara with both hands, sweat and soot streaking his face, and feels the impossible reality of what he is facing. This is no longer a duel against ordinary power. This is an awakening trial. This is a threshold that will either fracture or ignite his true potential. Rin's chest heaves as he centers himself, blue flames licking higher along the blade, turning Kurikara into a glowing conduit of his own demonic energy. The surrounding exorcists instinctively step back, recognizing that whatever is about to happen will dwarf anything they can manage. Yukio raises his weapons but does not fire, understanding that interference now could disrupt the flow of the awakening rather than aid it. The pressure from Sung Jin-Woo combined with the looming presence of the winged noble from Gehenna creates a crucible in which Rin's latent powers are being tested against forces beyond human comprehension. Jin-Woo's gaze remains fixed on him, calm yet intent. Shadows ripple outward with precision, forming defensive spikes and coils that press the limits of the courtyard without harming the innocents who have taken cover. His presence is a silent provocation, a gauntlet thrown without a word. Jin-Woo's subtle command is clear: rise or falter. Rin feels the weight of that silent expectation in his very bones, pushing him to the edge of control. The winged noble descends slowly, each movement deliberate, wings folding partially but radiating undeniable authority. It watches Rin as if observing a petri dish, analyzing the interplay of blue flame and shadow dominance. Its presence is overwhelming, yet strangely catalytic. Rin senses the stirrings of Gehenna's hierarchy in the noble's aura, and with that recognition, an unfamiliar clarity settles over him. He is not just fighting to survive. He is fighting to define his position in a hierarchy far larger than he ever imagined. With a sudden surge, Rin releases a portion of his bottled energy. Flames roar outward in all directions, scorching the fractured stone and igniting the edges of the shadows attempting to contain him. The movement is instinctive, fueled by desperation and raw emotion, but it is also controlled in an unprecedented way. He channels the infernal lineage within him, Kurikara becoming an extension of his will rather than just a weapon. The air vibrates with the intensity of his flames, and even Jin-Woo's shadows ripple with recognition, tightening around him to anticipate the next move. For the first time, Rin feels the echo of power beyond his comprehension resonate with his own demonic blood. The monarch's presence acts as both opponent and catalyst, forcing him to confront the limits of his potential. His eyes blaze, pupils constricting against the azure fire, and a low roar escapes his lips. Not just a sound, but an invocation of dormant capability. The courtyard shudders as the collision of energy expands outward, carrying heat, pressure, and the raw essence of demonic authority in waves that ripple against the air itself. The shadows surrounding Sung Jin-Woo react instantly, shifting into spiked barricades and sweeping coils that test Rin's control of his flames. But rather than retreating, Rin steps forward into the pressure, blue fire flaring in violent crescents around him. He channels every ounce of infernal power coursing through him, Kurikara humming with energy so potent it bends the light around it. His movements become precise, lethal, and instinctively adaptive to the shifting shadows. Every strike and swing is calculated yet fueled by unrestrained demonic energy, a chaotic order that begins to rival the Shadow Monarch's calculated authority. Rin's awakening accelerates. His body becomes a conduit for energy he barely understands, blue flames interacting with ambient shadow, creating zones of volatile tension across the battlefield. Ground fractures, stones levitate briefly under the combination of heat and shadow displacement, and the wind carries embers and ash in controlled spirals around him. The exorcists stand in awe, unable to intervene effectively, but fully aware that Rin is stepping into a domain where human limitations are meaningless. Jin-Woo said, observing with faint interest. He does not attack. He does not provoke. He allows the awakening to unfold, recognizing that Rin's potential, if properly catalyzed, could become a factor worth noting in this cross-dimensional engagement. Every movement Rin makes is calculated by the monarch. Shadow soldiers adjusting instantaneously, testing the limits of the young demon's emerging authority. The winged noble watches as well, its massive form silent but imposing. Each flap of its wings sends subtle ripples through the surrounding air, testing Rin's endurance and control. The presence emanates intent to dominate without immediate confrontation, an evaluation of capability rather than hostility. Rin senses the scrutiny and responds instinctively, flames flaring higher, Kurikara glowing with unprecedented intensity. His energy now begins to intertwine with the ambient pressure, feeding off the monarch-level authority around him, creating a resonance that amplifies both flame and shadow in unpredictable waves. Every exorcist in the courtyard feels the shift, not just the heat or the wind, but the fundamental reality bending subtly under the force of a demonic awakening catalyzed by the collision of sovereign powers. Rin's blue flames spike violently, forming spiraling tendrils that intertwine with Jin-Woo's shadows in a dynamic dance of counterpoint and challenge. It is not harmonious. It is not chaos. It is an emergent battlefield where raw potential confronts structured authority, and the outcome remains unwritten. Rin steps fully into the center of the courtyard, standing upright despite the tremors and the oppressive pressure. Flames erupt in concentric waves around him, spilling outward with intensity that even the winged noble seems to note with interest. Kurikara hums, blade glowing with condensed infernal power, and Rin's expression hardens with the first understanding of what it means to truly awaken against a monarch. Jin-Woo tilts his head, faintly approving, and allows the shadows to shift dynamically in response to Rin's movements, testing, measuring, and probing the limits of the young demon's emerging authority. The courtyard becomes a living arena of energy, an interdimensional crucible where Rin's awakening is not just about strength, but adaptability, control, and resonance with forces far beyond Assiah. The first tangible phase of Rin's transformation begins, his flames intertwining with ambient shadow, Kurikara acting as both anchor and amplifier. The blue inferno pulses rhythmically, almost sentiently, as if responding to the silent judgment of both Jin-Woo and the winged noble. The exorcists watch, tense and silent. This is not a fight they can intervene in. This is a trial unfolding in real time, a young demon stepping into a role that could shift the balance of both their world and the forces observing from Gehenna. And as Rin's blue flames surge higher, coiling and interacting with the shadow lattice that Jin-Woo maintains, a single truth becomes undeniable. The battle is no longer about offense or defense. It is about awakening. It is about potential. And it is about whether a human-demon hybrid can rise to stand in the presence of a monarch. The energy in the courtyard reaches a crescendo, stones levitating, air trembling, shadows twisting, and blue flames converging into spiraling torrents around Rin. Every instinct, every ounce of demonic lineage, every moment of training and struggle converges into this awakening. The monarch watches, the noble watches, Rin rises. The stage is set for a confrontation that will define power on a scale neither world has ever witnessed. And with that, the real test begins. Rin's blue flames surge higher, spiraling upward like living serpents, coiling around him in patterns that defy natural geometry. Kurikara hums with increasing intensity, the blade acting as a conduit for his growing demonic energy, anchoring the chaos into controlled form. The courtyard itself responds, stone levitating, fractures widening, and heat waves radiating outward in circular pulses that press against Jin-Woo's shadow lattice. The monarch's army reacts immediately, forming jagged adaptive coils designed to contain and test rather than destroy. Every shadow soldier anticipates Rin's next movement with precision, forcing him to continuously adjust, stretch, and refine his control. The winged noble from Gehenna observes silently, wings partially extended, aura radiating immense authority that bends the very atmosphere. It is not interference yet. It is an evaluation. Each motion Rin makes, each spike of flame, is measured and weighed. Even lower demons sense the shift in the hierarchy and bow instinctively, their instincts telling them that something unprecedented is unfolding. Arthur and Yukio stand at the edges of the battlefield, eyes wide with calculated fear. They know they are witnessing a cross-dimensional interaction that far exceeds ordinary combat, and yet they cannot look away. Rin raises Kurikara above his head, flames spiraling into a tornado of azure energy. He can feel the pressure of Jin-Woo's shadows pressing from all directions, testing his ability to adapt. This is not merely combat, it is a trial of dominance and synchronization. The shadows shift, compress, and expand in response, but Rin's flames are beginning to respond not with resistance, but with counter-patterns. His movements become fluid, strikes laced with instinctive precision, flames anticipating where the shadows will attempt to restrict him. The courtyard becomes a dynamic battlefield of force and counterforce. Every step of ground, every slice of Kurikara, a negotiation between sovereign powers. A massive spike of shadow lashes toward Rin, intended to test his reflexes and disrupt his equilibrium. He spins, flames wrapping around the spike like molten chains, redirecting its momentum back outward. The impact throws several of the shadow soldiers back, dissipating part of their formation, yet Jin-Woo's focus does not waver. He watches, evaluating Rin's capacity to learn and adapt, silently nudging the young demon toward thresholds of potential he never thought he could reach. Rin's muscles burn with exertion, sweat and soot streaking his face, yet he does not hesitate. He senses a resonance forming between his demonic energy and the latent pressure exerted by the monarch-level presence. The energy pulses through his veins, Kurikara vibrating with the intensity of an awakened conduit. With a sudden roar, he releases a concentrated burst of flames toward the largest shadow construct in the courtyard. The wave of heat is nearly tangible, bending light and air as it collides with the defensive lattice. For the first time, the shadows recoil, not out of weakness, but out of calculation. Jin-Woo's soldiers retract partially, gauging the strength and control Rin exerts over his flames. The lattice adapts, compresses, then counterattacks with measured strikes designed to push Rin to the edge of control. Each strike he deflects, each burst of flame he channels, strengthens his connection to Kurikara and awakens deeper reserves of demonic power within him. Arthur senses the shift immediately. The boy who had struggled against ordinary demons is now radiating an aura of authority that begins to rival the presence of a monarch. His flames are no longer purely reactive, they are proactive, capable of interacting with Jin-Woo's shadows and the surrounding environment in a way that suggests intelligence and adaptability beyond his years. Yukio fires, but his bullets scatter harmlessly against air thick with energy, forced to retreat to a defensive position. The winged noble leans slightly forward, evaluating Rin's progression. The young demon is not merely awakening, he is synchronizing. Flames and shadows dance in a chaotic yet structured interaction, a testament to instinct, potential, and raw lineage. Each pulse of energy draws a subtle reaction from the noble, who acknowledges the growing competence and authority without words. The celestial and infernal energies in the courtyard are now in delicate balance, tipping slightly toward the young demon as his awakening deepens. Steps forward, Kurikara holds confidently, blue flames forming arcs that shimmer with raw intensity. Every movement he makes is informed by instinct and rapid calculation, a dance of adaptability that begins to influence the battlefield at large. Stones rise, embers scatter, and the shadows ripple in response, now treating him as an active force rather than an anomaly to contain. He is learning to command his own potential against forces that were previously beyond comprehension, each strike and movement a declaration of emergent authority. Jin-Woo tilts his head slightly, the faintest trace of approval visible. He does not intervene directly, allowing Rin to continue, knowing that the young demon's growth is now part of a larger equation. The shadows pulse, forming temporary barricades and probes, but Rin's flames counter with adaptive patterns, breaking through in ways that indicate not only raw strength, but tactical intelligence and instinctive timing. The exorcists remain at the perimeter, tense and awestruck. Every explosion of blue flame, every ripple of shadow resonates through their senses, reminding them that what they are witnessing is not simply a fight, but a fundamental rewriting of the power structure within this space. Rin's awakening is no longer a private struggle. It is a defining moment with consequences that extend beyond Assiah itself. Rin roars again, blue flames exploding outward in all directions, interacting with the shadows in an intricate ballet of counterforce. Kurikara glows like a beacon of demonic authority, its blade a conduit of both instinctive skill and latent potential, finally finding release. The battlefield becomes alive with energy, a chaotic harmony of fire, shadow, and structural pressure, signaling the rise of a force that even the winged noble cannot ignore. And as Rin stands fully awakened in the center of the courtyard, flames spiraling and Kurikara humming, the first undeniable truth settles over everyone present. The young demon is no longer just a student of power. He is a sovereign in training, standing in direct challenge to the Shadow Monarch and the emissary of Gehenna alike, ready to assert his authority in a conflict that spans worlds. The awakening has begun in earnest. The battlefield trembles beneath it, and nothing in Assiah or beyond will ever be the same. Rin's flames surge higher, coiling around him in intricate spiraling patterns that seem to pulse with his heartbeat. Kurikara hums in resonance, its azure blade absorbing and amplifying his growing energy. The courtyard has transformed into a crucible of raw force. Stone levitates, the air ripples with heat, and the very fabric of space seems to bend slightly around the converging powers. Jin-Woo's shadows move in perfect synchronization, testing, probing, and adapting to Rin's newfound authority, yet they do not overwhelm. Instead, they act as catalysts, forcing him to stretch his limits, sharpening instinct into precision, and raw power into calculated action. The winged noble from Gehenna observes from above, wings partially unfurled, every movement deliberate, aura pressing down like gravitational weight. It does not intervene, yet its presence is enough to reshape the battlefield. Even the lower demons quake instinctively under its gaze, unable to resist its sovereign authority. Its attention, however, remains fixed on Rin. Unlike Jin-Woo, whose calm observation serves as a mirror of the monarch's confidence, the noble's scrutiny is analytical and probing, evaluating whether the young demon's potential is merely reactive or if he possesses the capacity to assert dominance independently. Rin steps fully into the center of the courtyard, Kurikara glowing brightly in his hands, and exhales a controlled roar that resonates with the entire battlefield. The blue flames erupt in waves, interacting dynamically with the shadows surrounding him. They are no longer purely destructive. They curve, coil, and adapt, responding instinctively to every probing strike of the shadow lattice. This is not mere combat. This is a negotiation of power through force. Every shadow Jin-Woo sends is answered with precision. Every probing strike is met with calculated resistance and counterattack. The flames seem almost sentient, responding not only to attacks but to the subtle pressure and intent behind them. Arthur and Yukio watch from the edge of the battlefield, recognizing the shift immediately. The boy who was once a student struggling to control his own flames is now actively challenging a monarch-level presence in real time. His every movement disrupts the conventional battlefield, forcing Jin-Woo's shadows and the ambient authority of Gehenna's emissary to react in tandem. The courtyard itself feels alive, stone cracking and rising, embers spiraling in deliberate arcs, as if the very world is bending to Rin's will. The winged noble flares its wings once, sending a controlled shockwave downward designed to test the durability of Rin's control. It is not a direct attack, but a pressure test, a challenge to see how much authority he can assert against the immense presence pressing down from above. The shockwave collides with Rin's flames, and for a moment the courtyard seems caught in stasis. Fire against shadow, heat against authority, mortal will against immortal assessment. Rin channels the pressure, Kurikara absorbing and amplifying the energy, and the blue flames erupt in response with a new intensity, coiling and striking outward with precision that mimics instinctive strategy rather than pure reaction. Jin-Woo leans slightly forward, shadows undulating around him like liquid steel. He does not attack, he does not interfere. He allows Rin to demonstrate his capacity to rise, to adapt, and to assert control. The shadows themselves become instruments of the trial, not enemies to be defeated. Each movement of the young demon triggers a response. Every adaptation in his control teaches him the subtle language of dominance in a battlefield where raw strength alone is insufficient. Rin's awareness expands. He begins to sense the interplay between his demonic lineage, the resonance of his blue flames, and the latent authority of the monarch surrounding him. Every inhalation, every controlled motion becomes a conduit for amplification. Kurikara hums louder, flames wrapping around it in tighter spirals as Rin channels both instinct and emerging strategy. The battlefield becomes a living orchestra of force, each element, shadow, flame, stone, and air, interacting in real time. The winged noble tilts its head slightly, noting the resonance forming between Rin and the ambient authority. It is a recognition without words. This is no longer a boy fighting desperately. This is a young sovereign stepping into his rightful place in the hierarchy of power. The noble's wings spread fully, generating subtle currents that interact with the spiraling blue flames. Rin's control is tested again, and this time he does not merely resist. He coalesces, shaping the energy into arcs and spirals that cut through the surrounding pressure like liquid fire, demonstrating adaptability that rivals instinctual monarch authority. Jin-Woo's shadows ripple in response, pushing against the new formations Rin creates, not to destroy but to test, forcing him to refine, adapt, and react in ways that stretch his potential. Every strike of flame, every movement of Kurikara, every pulse of energy is a step toward mastery. The young demon begins to move fluidly, weaving through the lattice of shadows, flames coiling and striking in harmony with the shifting battlefield. Arthur steps closer, eyes wide. Yukio remains frozen, weapons lowered, recognizing the emergence of a force that could challenge the balance of power in ways they cannot yet comprehend. Even Rin feels it, the weight of sovereign attention, the subtle pressure of authority from Jin-Woo, and the evaluating gaze of Gehenna's emissary. Every element aligns to push him beyond mere potential into the realm of actualized power. Rin exhales sharply, Kurikara glowing like molten sapphire in his hands. The blue flames expand outward in a controlled spiral, intertwining with the shadow lattice, interacting with the ambient authority, and asserting dominance in localized zones. The courtyard quakes, stones levitate, embers spiral in rhythmic, deliberate arcs, and the very air vibrates with concentrated energy. His body hums with newfound control, every motion precise yet instinctive, each movement shaping the battlefield itself. The first phase of Rin's awakening reaches a climax. Flames and shadows clash, collide, and then dance in intricate patterns, a demonstration of the young demon's emergent mastery. Kurikara channels every surge, every pulse, amplifying his authority and anchoring his connection to both his lineage and the surrounding energy. Jin-Woo observes silently, approving but not interfering, while the winged noble's massive form shifts slightly, wings folding and extending like a ruler evaluating a worthy opponent. Every observer understands that the young demon is no longer the same. Rin's awakening has begun to define the battlefield in ways that challenge both Assiah and Gehenna. The blue flames pulse in synchronization with the surrounding shadow lattice, a dynamic equilibrium of potential and authority that signals one truth: Rin is rising. And his place in this conflict is no longer peripheral. The courtyard trembles as energy pulses outward. The exorcists brace themselves, understanding that the next phase of the awakening will push boundaries beyond mortal comprehension. The first sparks of sovereign power have ignited, and the young demon stands ready to challenge, adapt, and assert dominance in the presence of two monarch-level entities. Rin's eyes blaze with determination. His blue flames twist, spin, and coil around him like living serpents. Kurikara hums in resonance. Jin-Woo and the winged noble watch intently. The awakening has only just begun, and the stakes have never been higher. The crucible of power is set. The dance of flames and shadows continues, and Rin Okumura is ready to step fully into the battlefield of monarchs. The air above True Cross Academy shimmers with oppressive intensity, charged with the undeniable presence of two forces that transcend human comprehension. Jin-Woo stands at the epicenter of his shadow lattice, dark tendrils writhing and coiling like living extensions of his will, while Rin Okumura, Kurikara clenched in his hands, erupts in a towering blaze of azure fire that dances with both instinct and precision. Above them, the winged noble of Gehenna hovers, massive form casting elongated shadows over the battlefield, its presence pressing down with the authority of an entire infernal hierarchy. The courtyard is no longer simply ground. It is a crucible of energy where the very laws of physics bend to the will of monarchs, where flame and shadow collide in a volatile ballet of destruction and control. The first tangible action comes not from Jin-Woo, not from Rin, and not from the noble, but from the ambient energy itself. The shadows twist into razor-sharp constructs, moving like serpents in coordinated attack patterns, testing the limits of the blue flames. Rin responds instinctively, Kurikara swinging with controlled arcs, flames coiling around the shadow spikes and dispersing them with intense precision. Each clash sends shockwaves rippling through the shattered stone, yet the fighters barely notice the structural devastation around them. For them, the battlefield is secondary to the exchange of raw authority. Jin-Woo's voice cuts through the invisible tension, calm yet imbued with an absolute certainty of dominance. "You are strong," he says, directed toward Rin, but not hostile. He does not attack directly. Instead, his shadows press, prod, and gauge, forcing Rin to continuously refine control over his flames. The lattice moves and adapts with uncanny intelligence, a constant push against the young demon's burgeoning power. This is not aggression, it is calibration, an experiment in testing the response of a potential sovereign power. The winged noble, however, is less patient. With a single motion of its wings, it generates a concentrated pulse of energy, enough to displace air, stone, and shadow alike. The force presses downward, a sovereign-level warning meant to evaluate and intimidate simultaneously. Rin absorbs the pressure with a controlled roar, blue flames spiraling violently upward and outward, Kurikara glowing like molten sapphire, every movement a declaration that he is not merely surviving this trial but asserting himself within it. The pulse meets the shadow lattice in a collision of opposing forces, creating zones of explosive energy that ripple outward, forcing even the most distant exorcists to shield their eyes. Arthur lunges forward, holy blade ignited with consecrated energy, attempting to intervene in what he instinctively knows is a battlefield beyond ordinary comprehension. Yukio supports him with careful, precise shots, but both are painfully aware that their actions are marginal at best. This war is no longer a human struggle. It is a contest of monarch-level authority, where traditional measures of power have little relevance. Rin senses it first, the subtle pressure of authority emanating from Gehenna's noble, layered atop the calculated opposition of Jin-Woo. The twin forces press inward, each seeking to test, refine, and assert dominance. Kurikara pulses with a resonance that aligns him to both, a bridge between instinctive demonic potential and external sovereign influence. His flames respond dynamically, curling, spiraling, and striking with precise unpredictability, shaping the battlefield into a constantly evolving dance of fire and shadow. Jin-Woo leans slightly forward, shadows compressing into jagged forms that surge toward Rin. These constructs do not aim to destroy, but to pressure, probe, and measure. Every strike of shadow is answered by a swirl of blue fire, forming patterns that ripple and adapt with preternatural speed. The collision generates a unique energy signature that distorts reality locally, bending light and heat in ways that blur the line between attack and environment. The young demon moves with growing confidence, Kurikara swinging in perfect synchronization with his instincts, flames interacting with shadows as though anticipating them before they form. The winged noble reacts to the evolving battlefield with subtle adjustments. Its wings fold partially, generating energy pulses calibrated to probe Rin's endurance. The heat of its form presses down in waves, attempting to destabilize the young demon's control. Rin inhales sharply, gathering the pressure into himself and Kurikara, then releases a controlled explosion of blue flames that interact directly with the shadow lattice. The result is an intricate, regulating conflict of energy, flame, and authority that reshapes the courtyard in real time. Lower-tier demons in the area collapse or flee, unable to withstand the concentration of power at play. The exorcists brace themselves, fully understanding the futility of direct interference. The entire battlefield vibrates under the tension of sovereign power colliding, flames and shadows entwined in an intricate and lethal dance. Rin steps forward, Kurikara glowing brighter with every motion, flames now coiling in tight spirals that expand outward in rapid bursts, interacting with both Jin-Woo's shadows and the ambient authority of the winged noble. He has moved beyond reaction. Every movement is strategic, a balance between instinct and conscious adaptation. The shockwaves ripple through the air, pushing structures and debris aside, reshaping the battlefield as if the very ground bends to the contest. Jin-Woo tilts his head slightly, a faint trace of approval in his posture. He continues his subtle pressure, testing Rin's responses, adjusting shadow constructs to force adaptation and provoke control. The lattice constricts and expands in real time, forming unpredictable patterns that Rin must navigate, channeling flame and Kurikara's energy in a synchrony that suggests emergent sovereignty. The winged noble's form pulses with latent energy, each beat of its wings generating subtle gravitational distortions and waves of authoritative pressure that challenge Rin's control. Kurikara hums, absorbing and amplifying Rin's responses, allowing him to maintain dominance within localized zones while still under constant testing from two monarch-level entities. The courtyard shakes as massive arcs of energy interact. Light bending, flames and shadows converging in controlled chaos, a visual manifestation of the clash between monarch and sovereign potential. Rin steps fully into the epicenter of this collision, blue flames flaring violently, Kurikara resonating like a beacon of authority. Each breath, each controlled movement, each strategic adjustment signifies his awakening into a force capable of standing among monarchs. Jin-Woo watches, assessing, subtly pushing, and the noble observes, evaluating with silent intensity. The battlefield is a crucible, energy twisting, colliding, and reforming, testing the limits of potential and power. The exorcists can only brace as the first tangible phase of the war begins. Monarch-level authority clashing directly with the infernal hierarchy of Gehenna, mediated through a rising human-demon hybrid whose flames and will have begun to define the rules of engagement. The very sky seems to fracture, energy pulsing outward while shadows and flames interact in lethal harmony. Rin's roar echoes across the academy grounds, synchronized with the pressure from Jin-Woo and the subtle gravitational waves from the winged noble. Kurikara shines like molten sapphire, energy weaving into the very atmosphere. He is no longer just a student, no longer a reactive force. He is an active agent, a sovereign in the making, asserting his will against powers that have long been uncontested. The battlefield trembles beneath the magnitude of the war. Flames, shadows, and authority collide, forming a layered, dynamic struggle where every motion, every adjustment, every pulse of energy carries consequence across Assiah and toward the unseen reaches of Gehenna. The first moves of this war have begun. The monarch confronts Satan's envoy, and the young demon has stepped fully into the crucible. The stage is set. The stakes are cosmic. The battlefield awaits the next escalation. The courtyard has become unrecognizable. Stones levitate in chaotic patterns, embers spin in tight spirals, and the wind carries a tangible pressure of authority that pushes against the limits of human endurance. Rin stands at the center, Kurikara glowing fiercely, blue flames wrapping around him in coiling torrents. Every pulse of his heart resonates through the flames, each exhalation driving bursts of energy that ripple outward in rhythmic waves. Jin-Woo's shadows shift constantly, probing, compressing, expanding, and retracting in patterns designed to test the young demon's adaptability. This is no longer simply a clash of power. It is a battle of instinct, control, and emergent sovereignty, a war unfolding in real time across multiple planes of authority. The winged noble above hovers silently, wings partially folded but radiating immense pressure. Its presence alone reshapes the environment. Air currents twist unpredictably, the heat fluctuates with subtle precision, and lower-level demons fall prone under the sheer weight of its authority. Yet it does not attack directly. Instead, it applies calculated pressure, evaluating Rin's responses to every nuance of gravitational distortion, flame intensity, and energy projection. Each subtle wave of power is a challenge, a test to see whether the young demon can assert his will when pressed against the authority of a sovereign entity. Tightens his grip on Kurikara, blue flames flaring brighter with each passing moment. His eyes blaze with determination as he steps forward, the ground beneath him cracking from the combined pressure of flame and shadow. The lattice of Jin-Woo's shadows compresses around him, probing aggressively, but Rin does not falter. His flames respond with unprecedented adaptability, wrapping around incoming spikes, redirecting surges, and exploding outward in spirals designed to maintain balance while asserting dominance. This is no longer reactive combat, it is controlled confrontation, a measured negotiation of authority and energy. Jin-Woo studies him carefully, adjusting the shadow lattice incrementally, each alteration subtle but precise. The spikes elongate, twist, and retract in microseconds, forcing Rin to adapt continuously. With each correction, Rin's control sharpens. His flames no longer behave purely according to instinct. They begin to respond with deliberate intent, coiling into forms that intercept, counter, and even anticipate the lattice's movements. The dynamic interplay creates a battlefield alive with energy, every moment a lesson in survival, adaptation, and the assertion of sovereign potential. The winged noble descends slightly, generating a pulse of pressure that radiates outward in concentric waves. The air compresses, stone fragments levitate, and even Jin-Woo's shadow constructs ripple from the force. Rin braces himself, Kurikara humming in response, absorbing and redirecting the energy with precision. The flames surge in controlled arcs, colliding with the wave and forming a counterpressure that pushes back without losing form. The battlefield is a living testament to the intensity of this conflict. Fire against shadow, authority against instinct, and human demon potential against monarch-level evaluation. Arthur and Yukio watch, tense and unmoving. Every traditional tactic they know is rendered obsolete by the scale of forces at play. Each blast of flame, Each ripple of shadow conveys a magnitude of power beyond human intervention. Their only role now is observation and survival, witnessing the emergence of a sovereign-level struggle that could reshape the balance of the entire universe. Even lower-level exorcists feel the oppressive pressure, unable to act, yet fully aware that they are in the presence of forces that could annihilate entire city blocks with minimal effort. Rin releases a controlled roar, blue flames expanding outward in complex spiraling arcs that interact dynamically with the shadow lattice. Jin-Woo adjusts, sending a surge of spikes that twist and coil in real time, yet Rin's flames intercept with refined precision. Each movement of Kurikara, each twist of flame, resonates through the battlefield, creating energy zones that disrupt the ambient pressure of Gehenna's noble without collapsing under it. This is a demonstration of emerging mastery. The young demon is learning to channel not only instinct, but authority, shaping both environment and opponent simultaneously. The winged noble flares its wings in a controlled display, sending gravitational ripples that press against Rin from above. He leans into the pressure, channeling the force through Kurikara and amplifying the blue flames, transforming the oppressive wave into a medium for his own dominance. Flames spiral higher, carving arcs through the courtyard, countering every pulse of authority from both Jin-Woo and the noble. The lattice shifts, coiling around the flames, testing and probing, yet Rin moves fluidly, harmonizing his instinctive control with strategic precision. Sung Jin-Woo tilts his head slightly, a faint sign of approval in his posture. He continues the subtle pressure, pushing Rin toward thresholds of control that would have been impossible moments ago. The shadows act as both challenge and teacher, forcing the young demon to refine not just power, but adaptability, anticipation, and resilience. Each clash leaves a visible imprint: scorched stone, displaced debris, and arcs of flame and shadow that intersect in complex, evolving patterns. The entire battlefield pulses with intensity, a layered composition of flame, shadow, and sovereign energy. Rin steps fully into the center, Kurikara glowing like molten sapphire. Blue flames coiling around him in serpentine spirals. The combined forces of monarch-level evaluation and shadow lattice pressure test his stamina, focus, and control, yet he stands unwavering. The air hums with energy as he channels the pressure into controlled bursts, shaping the battlefield with precision while asserting his emerging authority. Every exorcist present understands the magnitude of what is unfolding. The war is no longer between human and demon, exorcist and intruder. It is a battle of monarchs and potential sovereigns, a test of adaptability, control, and emergent power on a scale beyond normal comprehension. Rin's blue flames pulse with resonance, shadow spikes coil and retract, and the winged noble hovers in silent evaluation, each participant aware that the stakes have transcended Assiah itself. The first coordinated phase of the war between the monarch and Satan's envoy has begun. Flames, shadows, and authority intertwine in a lethal, adaptive dance, a crucible that tests control, instinct, and the capacity to assert dominance under pressure from multiple sovereign forces simultaneously. The battlefield trembles as energy collides, and Rin Okumura rises fully into his role as both challenger and emerging sovereign, ready to push beyond limitations and define the course of the war to come. Rin's flames surge with an intensity that seems to set the very air alight, coiling around him in serpentine spirals, each tendril a precise extension of his will. Kurikara thrums with energy, glowing brighter with every pulse of infernal power, amplifying not just his flames, but the resonance between his instincts and the battlefield itself. The courtyard has transformed into a living arena, stone levitating, dust swirling, and air rippling with sovereign energy. Sung Jin-Woo's shadows respond instantly, forming spikes, coils, and dynamic barriers that test Rin at every turn. These constructs are not merely offensive, they are an extension of Jin-Woo's intellect and authority. probing the young demon's limits while simultaneously providing a framework for him to adapt, evolve, and assert dominance. The winged noble hovers above, wings fully extended, each motion sending ripples of gravitational and demonic pressure across the battlefield. Its gaze remains locked on Rin, evaluating every flare of blue fire, every nuanced movement of Kurikara, every instinctive calculation that manifests in his combat rhythm. This is not a passive observation. It is judgment. It is recognition. Every pulse of energy Rin releases, every strategic adjustment he makes in response to the combined pressures of shadow and authority is catalogued, weighed, and tested. Rin feels it, an almost suffocating awareness that every misstep could result in instant annihilation. Yet instead of fear, it fuels his focus. With a guttural roar, Rin steps fully into the epicenter of the converging forces. Flames spiral outward, interacting dynamically with the lattice of shadows that Jin-Woo maintains, striking with precision, twisting and wrapping around incoming constructs. The shadows respond, compressing and adapting. But Rin's mastery of Kurikara allows him to redirect pressure, absorb kinetic energy, and even turn opposing attacks into launching points for counterflame strikes. Every action demonstrates a growing understanding. This is no longer raw power. This is refined sovereignty in motion. Sung Jin-Woo leans slightly forward, shadows shifting in almost imperceptible waves, the lattice pulsing as if alive, responding not merely to Rin's flames, but to his intent. Every strike Rin executes, every arc of Kurikara's movement, every manipulation of flame intensity is being measured, tested, and acknowledged. Jin-Woo's presence serves as both challenge and mentor, pushing Rin toward thresholds of control he has never approached before. The winged noble, sensing the escalating resonance, flares its wings in a controlled burst, sending a wave of pressure downward that compresses the air, displaces stone, and tests Rin's endurance. The young demon channels it directly through Kurikara, amplifying the flames, twisting the shock into arcs of controlled fire that surge outward in spiraling ribbons. The lattice reacts immediately, probing, compressing, and expanding around these arcs. Yet Rin adapts seamlessly, a rhythm forming between fire, shadow, and sovereign energy. Rin's body hums with power, every muscle, every nerve attuned to the dynamics of this unprecedented battle. The battlefield responds to his movements, flames igniting in arcs around shadow spikes, debris shifting in response to kinetic pulses, and the air itself seeming to bend around him. It is no longer a duel. It is a war of will, instinct, and emergent authority. The combined pressures of a monarch-level shadow presence and the emissary of Gehenna's authority have created a crucible in which Rin's true potential is awakening, each wave of conflict shaping him into a force capable of standing against sovereign entities. Energy pulses outward in violent but controlled waves, scattering debris and igniting arcs of flame across the courtyard. Sung Jin-Woo shifts subtly, allowing the young demon to assert dominance in local zones, pushing him toward understanding the balance between raw power and controlled authority. The winged noble hovers silently, wings moving in precise arcs that continue to test Rin's adaptation and endurance. The clash of monarch and awakening sovereign reaches a dynamic equilibrium. Neither side fully dominates, yet both influence the battlefield in profound, visible ways. Rin steps forward once more, Kurikara glowing brighter, flames spiraling around him like a living storm. His eyes burn with focus and determination, every movement calculated yet instinctively fluid. The lattice reacts, spikes lashing toward him in rapid sequences, but Rin's counterflames intercept with exacting precision. The environment itself seems to obey the ebb and flow of their energy. The ground quakes, stones levitate, and embers spiral in rhythmic controlled arcs that trace the interactions between shadow and flame. As the energy crescendo reaches its peak, the tension in the courtyard becomes almost tangible. Jin-Woo observes quietly, his shadows flowing like liquid steel, pressing, probing, and adapting to Rin's increasingly sovereign-level maneuvers. The winged noble above senses the young demon's evolution, subtle shifts in gravitational pressure and aura indicating that Rin has begun to assert true control over his own energy while dynamically responding to forces orders of magnitude above ordinary combatants. Rin exhales, releasing a controlled yet explosive surge of blue flame that interacts with the shadow lattice and the ambient pressure from the noble. The courtyard shakes violently, waves of energy radiating outward, yet he stands firm. Kurikara thrumming in resonance, flames coiling and striking with precise authority. This is not only an awakening, it is a declaration. Rin Okumura is no longer merely a student. He is a rising sovereign, capable of influencing, adapting to, and challenging forces that have existed beyond human comprehension. Jin-Woo tilts his head slightly, approval barely perceptible, yet unmistakable. He continues to apply subtle pressure, a reminder that Rin's journey toward true sovereign authority is ongoing. But for the first time, the lattice recognizes the young demon as a worthy force. The winged noble hovers with quiet intensity, wings adjusting subtly, aura pulsing, signaling acknowledgement of Rin's emergent authority. The war has reached a dynamic equilibrium. Monarch against awakening sovereign, shadow against flame, authority against instinct. Yet the battlefield is alive with motion, energy, and potential. The exorcists at the perimeter, including Arthur and Yukio, watch in awe. Every shockwave, every coiling arc of flame and shadow, every tremor in the courtyard conveys the scale of the forces at play. No human measures can contain this war. It is a battle of monarchs, a contest of will and authority. And Rin has proven himself capable of stepping into the crucible, adapting, learning, and asserting his place among forces beyond comprehension. And as the dust settles momentarily, Kurikara glowing brilliantly, blue flames spiraling with controlled ferocity, shadows shifting in perfect adaptive harmony, one truth becomes clear. The war between Monarch and Satan's envoy has begun, and Rin Okumura has emerged as a formidable force in the chaos. The battlefield trembles under the intensity of sovereign authority clashing with rising demonic potential. Before the conflict escalates further, let's pause here to appreciate just how monumental this battle has become. From shadow to flame, from human to monarch-level presence, the clash has redefined the limits of power in the Blue Exorcist universe. If you're amazed by Rin's awakening and the interplay of forces here, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next phase, where the battlefield will erupt even further. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Who do you think has the upper hand in this monumental clash, Jin-Woo or Rin Okumura? The war is far from over, but one thing is certain. Nothing in Assiah or Gehenna will ever be the same again.